Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole Dunn, the Director of Marketing and Programs at Fast Forward. Welcome to the 6th class of the Fast Forward Academy. We'd love to know in the chat where you're joining us from, so let us know. A bit about Fast Forward. We believe the best tech should be applied to our biggest social problems. That's why we focus exclusively on helping tech nonprofits scale. We launched the Fast Forward Academy to do more of that. Outside of the Academy, our main thing is a 3-month accelerator for tech nonprofits. We also released the Tech Nonprofit Playbook last year. So if you're looking for more great advice on scaling social impact tech, you might want to check it out. Before we meet Anjali, a few quick norms. This class is being recorded. We ask that you stay on mute when you're not speaking. During Q&A, which will be from around 12:30 to 1, use the raise hand feature to ask questions, which you can find under the reactions tab. But if you don't see it, you can just let me know you have a question and I'll be sure to call on you. And finally, share your experience on social, tag us, and use the hashtag FastForwardAcademy. The Fast Forward Academy was made possible by eBay Foundation and Comcast Business. A big thank you for their support. We'd also like to thank our sustaining premier partners, Google.org, BlackRock, HPE Foundation, Twilio.org, GM, and Okta. They make all of this work possible. By the way, as a special treat, stay for the networking portion from 1 to 1:30 for a chance to win an eBay gift card. And now to today's topic. Many tech nonprofits operate with a B2B or business to business model. To get their product into the hands of more people who need it, they often sell or give away their product to partners who then leverage it in their communities. Customer success is the practice of helping customers use your product, stay engaged, and sign on to keep using it year after year. Which brings us to CommonLit. CommonLit is a free online reading and writing program for elementary, middle, and high school students. CommonLit went through the Fast Forward Accelerator in 2016 and has quickly become one of our breakout tech nonprofit stars. It's now used in 75,000 schools across the country, and it's reached over 20 million students and teachers around the world. While CommonLit's bread and butter is their free program, they also sell services to schools and districts. And as of today, they have nearly 200 paid partnerships in the United States. That's thanks in part to today's speaker, Anjali Yadav. Anjali co-created CommonLit's customer success team, which supports CommonLit's customers from the time they close with the sales team to negotiating the renewal and everything in between. And we're so lucky because today she is going to teach us all how they do it so well. With that, I'm pleased to introduce you to Anjali Yadav.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Nicole and Summer and the rest of the Fast Forward team for putting this together and letting me come and talk today. I am super, super excited. And thank you to all of you for being here. And I hope that this is worth your while and that you can take some really helpful tips and insight into building out your own CS strategies. All right. So today we're going to be talking about, structuring your own customer success strategies for your teams. And before we jump into things, I wanted to first just ask a question to all of you. So if you could please post your answer in the chat and share a product or service that you love, that you subscribe to. And the reason I want to ask this is just to get us in the headspace about thinking about being customers, specifically being happy customers. And this can be something that you maybe personally subscribe to, like Spotify, or maybe something that your nonprofit subscribes to, such as Slack. And let's see what some people are saying. I'm seeing a lot of Spotify's agreed. Yep. These are awesome. And so keep these sort of just in your back pocket. We're going to come back to this at the end. But like I said, just wanted to get us sort of thinking about being customers. But that takes me sort of to our agenda for today. So when I was putting together this deck, I really spent some time thinking about what would have been most helpful to me and my team when we were just starting out in customer success, and what would have been helpful to have heard and to learn. So with that in mind, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about why customer success, what it is and why it matters specifically for nonprofits. We'll then spend some time talking about how to begin thinking with a customer success mindset. And then we're going to spend a bulk of the time talking about actually creating your customer success strategies. And I'll share 4 tools to help you all in doing that. So jumping right in, what is customer success? So essentially, customer success is about managing and optimizing your customers' experiences so that they want to remain your customers. And ideally, right, tell their friends about your nonprofit too. And the benefits of having a strong customer success strategy translates to really positive business outcomes, such as higher retention, higher customer loyalty, lower churn rates, higher revenue. The list can really go on. So of course, this is going to be critical for any business's success, right? But especially our nonprofits. And the reason for that, just to sort of what Nicole said at the beginning, CommonLit, we operate a free reading program for students in elementary, middle, and high school. And that will be free in perpetuity. And that's really our mission as an organization, is to provide that reading program for free to teachers and students. But in order to support ourselves as an organization and to be able to continue, achieving and fulfilling that mission, we have also started selling add-on supports and services to schools and school districts. So we really have this double bottom line, right? Where we are wanting to continue, we want to be able to fund ourselves and be self-sufficient or financially independent as an organization, as well as continue to support that mission that we have as a nonprofit. And so you may be wondering to yourself, well, when do you really need to start caring about customer success? And my answer to that is that whenever you have things that you are interested in and ready to begin selling to customers. And the reason for that is that many businesses today operate under a recurring revenue model, right? Where you have some sort of subscription sort of setup for your payment structure. And so in that paradigm, the relationship with customers is beginning with the purchase. Whereas maybe in the traditional business sense, that was sort of when it ended with the sale. So because that is when the relationship is starting, it's worthwhile and critical to put time into thinking, well, what will that relationship actually look like before you actually enter into that partnership? So before we jump into some practical tools that actually begin structuring out a CS strategy, I think it's helpful to step back and think about how customer success is really going to fit in with your organization and sort of frame how customer success will kind of function in your organization. And I think that there are 2 kind of foundational pieces here that I just want to touch on. So the first is that customer success should really be informing your product. And the reason for that is that customer success is sitting on a gold mine of relevant product feedback and insight. You're hearing firsthand from customers what's working, what's not, what they love, what maybe they wish was different. And that is really important information to be passing along to your product teams and to the folks that are responsible for sort of future iterations and improvement to your product. So really having a clear communication channel there. But on the flip side of that too, your product should absolutely inform your customer success strategy. And that's going to be unique to your nonprofits and to your specific products or services. And the reason for that, you are the expert in your product in terms of knowing what would it take for a customer to really be successful using or implementing your product or your service. So that will absolutely want to inform your actual strategy when you're building out. And then secondly, your ability to keep customers is really only as good as the fit. So again, the goal of customer success is really you're wanting to keep your customers year over year over year. And so it's critical that you are selling to the right people and that you're really in sync with your sales teams or salespeople, really who are your target customers, and being on the same page about that. So now I would love to talk about actually creating your customer success strategy. And there are 4 kind of tools and processes that I want to share today. So we'll talk about defining success, then segmenting customers, mapping out your customer journey, and then we will wrap up by talking about monitoring and using customer health. So jumping into the first one, defining success for your customer is really about zooming out and getting to the why behind their purchase. So why did they purchase your product or your service? And what is the problem or the need that they have, and how is your product, service, or an organization going to help address that? And that's important, one, in just understanding where your customers are coming from and who you're supporting. But it also is telling you how they are going to be defining success for themselves. And that'll absolutely be relevant in how you choose to manage that partnership. Before we continue on to segmentation, I just want to ask another question of you all and learn a bit about you and your teams. So if you could please post your answer in the chat and share how many paying customers your nonprofit has as of today. And the reason for that, just wanting to sort of frame the next portion when we get into segmentation, make sure that it's sort of will be like the most helpful and most applicable. Perfect. So to talk about segmentation a little bit, ultimately the goal of segmentation is to organize your customers in such a way that it will inform your team's management of those partnerships. And so you can be more efficient and more effective in managing them. And there are many different ways that you can segment your customers. I've listed a few on the screen, but really what matters most is that it's just done in a way that makes the most sense to your team. And again, this might matter down the line as maybe you have more customers or as your customer base changes. I know for us at CommonLit, we have changed the way that we segment our customers sort of, again, as our customer base has grown. So to give an example of the first 2 ideas that we've talked about, I would like to introduce you to our customer Fast Forward Charter Network. So Fast Forward, just to tell you a little bit about this new CommonLit partner. They are a charter network of 25 schools, and they have been using CommonLit's free platform, but they are now a new CommonLit customer. And so the first question is, well, which segment would this customer fit into? So for us at CommonLit, I mentioned that we recently changed how we segment our customers, but we have started segmenting customers by their size, by the size of the contract. So because this is a 25 school partner, that might be one of our larger contracts. And so maybe one of our more senior customer success team members would manage that relationship. Someone who's maybe more familiar with sort of the complexities that come along with large networks of schools. And then, we would want to know, well, why did they actually choose to partner with CommonLit? So how are they going to be defining success, and what's that problem that they're having? So again, I mentioned that they were using CommonLit's free reading program. But then, they learned that we had some add-on supports for schools and school districts, and they really were interested in that and wanted to use, our benchmark assessments for student progress monitoring this year. And that's a really big, important focus for their school district going into next school year. So that's just sort of to illustrate how segmentation and defining success could look in practice for us at CommonLit and how we would apply those two ideas. But so from the time of sale, you really want to be asking yourself, how will customers be moving through your company and actually experiencing your product? And the tool that we can use to help us with that is called journey mapping. So the goal of journey mapping is to help you and your team really structure the relationship that you want to have with partners and with customers. And that will help not only you, but your customer know what to expect, but it will also help you backwards plan for your interactions and collateral and other resources or deliverables that you need to make sure that that customer feels supported, really from, again, the time of sale. And so something that you really want to be thinking about as you're building out your map, and we'll look at an example in just a moment, but you want to be thinking about these main touch points that you really will have with customers. And to give an example of a touch point, consider going out to dinner and going out to a restaurant. The first touch point you might have with the restaurant is when you're greeted by the host. And that can really, set an impression for your interaction with the restaurant. But it also tells you, what to expect and sort of how you're treated, how you are interacting with the host in the restaurant. And then there are these other touch points where eventually you'll be seated and, greeted by your server. And again, these kind of like key moments where you feel like you're getting value and you feel like you are being supported in that relationship. So we're kind of applying the same idea here to journey mapping for our customers, where again, we want to structure that relationship in such a way so that it feels coherent and it feels really supported and clear. So to give you an example, based on our product and the level of interaction that we want to have with customers, we have really these 4 key phases of our journey map. So the first is, we're starting with the purchase. So once they have closed with our sales team, we're being connected to them. And that's the first time that we're meeting them. And that really is, setting that impression. Maybe we'll plan, a kickoff meeting, and that'll sort of transition us into actually onboarding that customer, where again, we're learning about their goals and defining success. And we are planning for any trainings that they may need for the product. We're then throughout the school year really going to be engaging with them. We're wanting, sort of the goal of that is to want to boost adoption of the product and really like foster a sense of strong customer buy-in. And all of that work during the engagement phase is really to help facilitate that final renewal phase, where we're hoping to renew that contract for another year, or maybe, hopefully, deepen or extend the contract. And so we can continue to get more granular with our journey map, where again, we can add on these like big touch points that we actually want to have with customers. And so I've added a few examples here of the specific kinds of collateral meetings or other like resources and interactions that we would have with customers. And again, the goal of these is really to help customers kind of get to this like aha moment where they feel like they are getting value out of that relationship with CommonLit. And the purpose of this again is to help you backwards plan and be prepared, but it should also really be seen as a flexible guide and really like a living resource that will continuously be updated, rather than something that's rigid or inflexible. But sort of in the background of all of this, we really want to be thinking about and monitoring how customers are actually progressing through the map. So, where are they getting stuck and why is that happening? And one way that we can do that is by, customers telling us directly that they're having some problem. And that absolutely has value. But where we can, we want to try to start being more proactive with that, where we're starting to anticipate customers' problems and needs before they actually have to reach out and tell us. And the tool that we can use to help us do that is health monitoring. And health monitoring really is built with the goal in mind of knowing, which customers are using the product well and really being successful with it. And maybe, and who is falling behind, and how can we sort of help get those folks back on track. And again, this is shifting the focus of your team from being reactive, where we're waiting for customers to tell us that something is wrong, to being more proactive in reaching out before they have to email or call us. And so how do we do this? So there are many different ways to monitor customer health, and there are two different kinds of measures. The first are outcome measures, where we're looking at things like product usage, or the number of support tickets or emails that they're sending us. And then there are also experience measures, where we're looking at maybe like satisfaction scores, or other survey data that we've collected, and any other qualitative measurement that we can get from customers, maybe such as just reflections from your team members on how that relationship is going. And so, there are many different ways to create a health score, but I find the thought exercise, what would your healthiest and happiest customers look like on paper, as a really helpful starting point to really figure out what are the key things that you could track to really begin answering that question. And I think I also just want to emphasize that really being able to track even one input, maybe like number of emails, is better than nothing. Because again, this is shifting the focus of your team from being reactive to being more proactive and anticipating customers' needs ahead of time. So really what's most important, in my opinion, when it comes to health monitoring, is starting with and focusing on what you can consistently and accurately track over time, and know that it will continue to evolve. So I'd love to show an example of how CommonLit has done health reporting. So just to sort of help orient you to the page here, this is one of our first health reports that we put together, and we decided that we wanted to track 4 different usage metrics, and you can see those at the top bolded. And we then weighted the different metrics, kind of depending on their value and their level of importance. And then we added them all up and gave partners a total score out of 12 in our case. And then we were able to sort of sort that so we could focus on, who were the low scorers, who were the high scorers. And then we could also focus in on, specific metrics that were maybe very low. And so that's sort of how we structured our report. And this was done in a Google sheet. There are absolutely, fancy tools and software out there that will do health reporting. But I think for us, when we were just starting to do health reporting, it was very valuable to do it manually ourselves, because we very quickly were able to learn what actually wasn't as important for us, or maybe the way that we were tracking a certain metric isn't the right way that we want to do it. So we had more flexibility in actually being able to change and modify our health reporting to make it perfect for us. And I think that would have been a bit more complicated to jump right into a tool that would do that for us, and we would just have to have less flexibility there. So of course, as much as we all love a nicely color-coded spreadsheet, the point of having a health report is that you can actually use that data, right? And so again, the purpose of health scoring is to know who's not using the product successfully, and how can we actually then intervene to get them back on track. So asking yourself these questions, so if you see someone has a low health score, how will you act on that? Or how will you continue to support high scorers' continued behavior? What are they doing that you want to really encourage? And then, also taking time to be specific about what actually makes a customer at risk of churn. So, maybe what are the specific things that you really would maybe be a red flag for your team, so you can sort of focus your efforts as you're using this data. And I think, again, really in using health reporting, what's most important is that you're starting with what you can track consistently and accurately. And setting aside time on regular intervals to actually review that data, so you're able to use it and then continue to refine your reporting over time. So to recap, we just spent some time talking about these 4 tools that will really help you to structure out your management strategy and begin building out those processes. But I think it's helpful to return to the point of all of it. And so again, customer success exists because you're helping your customers solve a problem, or you're helping them address a need that they have. And you are wanting to do it in such a way, you're wanting to help them be so successful that they want to remain your customers and continue working with your teams. And so customer success plays a huge and key role in building loyalty for your organization, and specifically in building attitudinal loyalty, where they are staying your customers because they love your product, not just because it's convenient or maybe too complicated to leave. So, at the beginning, I asked all of you to share a company that you love and subscribe to. And the reason that you love them, isn't by chance, like that was by design. And so for your customers that have really high loyalty, they won't just have extreme satisfaction, but they're also more likely to become advocates for your product and for your service. So that could mean, referring new customers to you, offering to be in a case study or share a testimonial that will really help your business continue to grow and thrive. So just to sort of share some final thoughts here, I've shared this a few times throughout the presentation, but I think it's worth reiterating, just starting with where you are and, kind of beginning with the resources that you have and can dedicate to working on building out a customer success strategy. And knowing that customer success is a relatively new field in the world of business. And so best practices and approaches are changing very often. And after this presentation, you all will be getting some of my favorite resources that I have found particularly helpful. So I think just staying open to remaining curious and continuing to want to learn about the field as you are doing it. And then finally, your customer success systems and processes will absolutely continue to improve and change, especially as your nonprofit grows and as your customer base grows. So just again, being willing to be flexible with your systems and continuing to make them more efficient and effective for you all. And so with that, I would love to hear from all of you about what questions you have around customer success.